Welcome back. Coinology. In the dim glow of a collector's lamp, a small copper coin rests beneath the magnifying glass, its surface bearing the quiet scars of circulation, its edges dulled by decades of passing from hand to hand. It is a 1988 D Lincoln cent, ordinary to most eyes, yet to those who understand the language of mint marks, die varieties, and microscopic imperfections, this humble piece of metal carries a story that bridges centuries of American history and the human fascination with value itself. The camera slowly pans across the obverse, the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln gazing forward, frozen in time since 1909, a symbol of endurance and change, a monument shrunk to the scale of the palm. Every great discovery in numismatics begins with curiosity, someone looking closer, seeing not just a coin but a clue, a fingerprint of the minting process. The Denver Mint, marked by that tiny D beneath the date, struck billions of pennies in 1988. Each was supposed to be identical, a perfect repetition of design. But perfection, as history proves, is rarely achieved in mass production. Some 1988 D cents emerged with subtle irregularities, minute shifts in the die alignment, faint doubling in letters, differences in design details that link them to earlier or transitional patterns. To a casual observer, these are invisible. To a trained eye, they are worth fortunes. The 1988 D cent weighs approximately 2.5 grams, made mostly of zinc with a thin copper plating, a change that began in 1982 when rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to abandon the solid bronze composition that had defined the Lincoln cent for more than 70 years. What once was a coin of intrinsic value became a symbol of economic adaptation. The copper shell gives the illusion of tradition, but beneath lies a cheaper, lighter core, a metaphor for an era grappling with inflation, industrial modernization, and the shifting relationship between appearance and worth. As the narrator's voice lingers, the screen fills with archival footage. Denver in the late 1980s, the rhythmic clatter of coin presses, stacks of blanks gleaming under factory lights. Workers in protective gear inspect sheets of planchets, unaware that among millions of uniform strikes, a few would emerge that collectors decades later would hunt like relics of myth. Some of these coins, through quirks of machinery or timing, inherited features from an earlier design, the 1988 reverse still carrying elements from the 1987 die, a subtle artistic ghost of the past embedded in a coin that was meant to look entirely new. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse stands proud, each column rendered in minute relief. Yet within this image of national unity lies the trace of human imperfection. The designer's initials, FG for Frank Gasparo, sit near the steps, sometimes bold, sometimes faint, depending on the pressure and polish of the die. Collectors scrutinize those letters, comparing the curve of the G, the angle of the serif, the spacing that might distinguish a common cent worth a single penny from a variety worth thousands. The 1988 D transitional reverse became legendary for precisely that reason. It was a moment when the Mint, transitioning from one master hub to another, accidentally paired an old reverse die with a new obverse, creating a hybrid never meant to exist. Numismatists call it the 1988 D reverse of 1989. To the untrained eye, the difference is nearly imperceptible, but to collectors, it is a masterpiece of serendipity, a reminder that even machines guided by precision can produce art through error. Those who discovered the first examples could hardly believe what they saw. Under magnification, the designer's initials appeared in the newer style, confirming that the Denver Mint had indeed used the wrong die. A production oversight became a treasure, its rarity magnified by time, its mystique growing with every auction. As the years passed, the legend of the 1988 D cent expanded beyond technical detail. It became a symbol of how chance and human curiosity transformed the mundane into the magnificent. Somewhere, a single coin could lie unnoticed in a jar, its true worth concealed until someone cared enough to look closer. And in a marketplace fueled by passion as much as economics, that hidden gem could command prices reaching into the millions. The figure of $10 million, while extraordinary, embodies more than just monetary speculation. It represents the collective desire to find meaning and fortune in the smallest artifacts of civilization. The narration slows, almost reverent. Each coin is a time capsule, bearing the fingerprints of its era, the policies that shaped its metal, the technology that forged its form, the ideals engraved upon its face. The Lincoln cent, introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person rather than allegorical imagery. It signaled a shift in national identity, from mythic symbolism to human legacy. Over the decades, as the design evolved, Lincoln's portrait remained a steadfast icon of endurance through wars, recessions, and revolutions in minting. By 1988, that image had already witnessed the digital dawn and the fading of the Cold War. The camera drifts across old newspapers announcing coinage changes, archival interviews with mint officials, close-ups of engravers working by hand. A voice explains how the Mint balanced artistry with automation, how die hubs were sculpted, reduced, and multiplied to feed vast presses that could strike hundreds of coins per minute. Yet within this symphony of industry, there was always the possibility of divergence, a misplaced hub, a reused die, a microscopic misalignment that could give birth to a rarity. Collectors often speak of the thrill of the hunt. It is not merely about possession but discovery. Somewhere, amid billions of cents, lies a coin that tells a different story, one that whispers rather than shouts. The 1988D transitional variety speaks of continuity and change, of the delicate boundary between eras. To hold one is to hold a fragment of minting history, a bridge between two technological worlds, the hand-engraved craftsmanship of the past and the digital precision of the future. When numismatic historians trace the journey of such coins, they find patterns of chance intersecting with human oversight. The Denver Mint, bustling and exacting, produced over 5 billion cents that year. A handful bore the wrong reverse, perhaps due to dies shipped inadvertently from Philadelphia, perhaps due to the haste of keeping presses running at full capacity. That tiny lapse created a coin whose narrative now outweighs its physical mass by millions. In private collections and auction houses, the 1988D cent has become a totem of patience rewarded. Stories circulate of collectors discovering them in pocket change decades later, astonished that a piece once spent on a cup of coffee could transform into a life-changing find. The idea that rarity hides among the ordinary captures something deeply human, the hope that persistence, curiosity, and faith in one's eye can uncover hidden value where others see none. As the music swells, the narration reflects on the paradox of worth. Money was invented to standardize value, yet here we see value reborn through deviation. The coin that strayed from perfection became priceless precisely because of its flaw. This, perhaps, mirrors the story of Lincoln himself, a man shaped by hardship, imperfect yet enduring, whose face continues to grace the smallest denomination of U.S. currency as a daily reminder of resilience. The documentary pauses on a slow-motion shot, the coin spinning, catching light, its copper sheen glowing like embers. The voiceover continues, softer now. Somewhere in that light is the reflection of every hand that held it, the worker who earned it, the child who saved it, the collector who discovered it anew. Its surface carries invisible histories, a network of moments woven into metal. The 1988D cent's journey from mint floor to myth encapsulates the entire spirit of numismatics, a field where science meets art, where the smallest variation can rewrite history. As we follow its path through time, through coin rolls, collections, auctions, and legends, we begin to see that this story is not just about a coin. It is about us, our drive to preserve, to analyze, to believe that even in the smallest relics, there lies a piece of eternity, and thus begins the chronicle of the 1988D Lincoln cent, its weight modest, its composition unassuming, yet its story vast enough to fill volumes. As this documentary unfolds, we will trace its origins, its discovery, its rise in value, and the world it reflects, a world where copper and zinc become vessels of history and human wonder. The camera fades into the quiet hum of a coin shop, somewhere in the American Midwest. Rows of glass cases glisten under fluorescent light, each holding decades of numismatic history, silver dollars, buffalo nickels, mercury dimes, and the humble Lincoln cent in its endless varieties. The lens lingers on a single collector, his hands careful, deliberate, holding a worn magnifier. His eyes fix on a small copper coin placed on a velvet tray. It looks like any other penny, until he turns it beneath the light, studying the subtle curvature of the letters, the alignment of the mint mark, the whisper of detail around the Lincoln Memorial. He leans closer, breath shallow, the magnifier trembling slightly. There it is, the 1988D reverse of 1989. A tiny anomaly that could change everything, and the narrator's tone deepens, almost reverent. For every collector who dreams of discovery, this is the moment that defines a lifetime. Hours spent searching through boxes of coins, nights lit by the pale blue glow of a desk lamp, each coin examined, each detail compared to worn reference books and online archives. Most searches end with nothing but fatigue. But once, perhaps only once, the universe offers reward. A coin that others overlooked becomes a story worth telling. The camera cuts to archival footage of the Denver Mint in 1988, the press is roaring like engines of creation. Sheets of zinc blanks, washed in a thin copper bath, are fed into the stamping machines. The dies strike thousands of times per minute, each blow shaping history in metal. Every cent that rolls off the line is examined, weighed, bagged, and shipped, billions of them, a river of copper flowing into the economy. Yet among those billions, a few carry the silent mark of transition, the subtle fingerprint of the wrong master die. The 1988D transitional reverse represents more than a minting error. It is a story about precision meeting chaos, about how the relentless push for production can yield accidental masterpieces. As the narrator speaks, we see diagrams of the reverse design, the faintly curved G in the designer's initials, the sharper crossbar, the tiny differences in spacing between the memorial columns. To most people, these details seem microscopic, irrelevant. But in the world of coin collecting, such minutiae define rarity, and rarity defines value. A scholar of numismatics appears on screen, his voice calm and measured. He explains how the Mint, in preparing for the 1989 issue, had already begun producing new reverse dies late in 1988. In the rush to meet demand, some of these new dies were accidentally paired with obverse dies still dated 1988.
Thus, the hybrid was born. No conspiracy, no special issue, simply an alignment of timing and oversight. Yet in that moment, history slipped through the cracks and created a legend, the narrator continues, now with a tone of awe. Over time, collectors began to notice something strange. In rolls of 1988 D pennies, a few appeared different. Their reverses seemed cleaner, more refined, the letters slightly shifted. Slowly, through shared photographs, numismatic forums, and microscopic study, a pattern emerged. By the early 2000s, the error was formally documented. What began as whispers among enthusiasts became a recognized variety, catalogued, authenticated, and pursued. The story unfolds like a detective case. In auction rooms, voices murmur as rare examples appear under glass. Bidding paddles rise cautiously, the air heavy with anticipation. A single copper coin, commands prices that defy logic. The gavel falls. A coin that once bought a stick of gum now holds a 5-figure value. The crowd exhales, some with disbelief, others with envy. The market, unpredictable and alive, has spoken. Then the narrative shifts, exploring the deeper meaning of this obsession. What drives people to chase these tiny metallic miracles? The answer, the voice suggests, lies not just in profit but in connection. Coins are storytellers. They pass silently through hands, across generations, carrying fragments of time. A 1988 D-cent minted in Denver might have traveled in a soldier's pocket, a child's lunch money, a vendor's till, before resting in a jar for decades. When discovered anew, it brings all those invisible stories with it. Under the microscope, the 1988 D-cent reveals its craftsmanship. The texture of the metal, the raised relief of Lincoln's portrait, the sharpness of the date. Every line carved by the engraver's tool is still visible, though softened by wear. The composition, 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper plating, reflects the compromises of an era when the price of raw materials threatened to outweigh the face value of the coin itself. In 1982, the mint shifted from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc, a decision that forever altered the sound, feel, and durability of the cent. The 1988 D-cent is a child of that change, lighter, cheaper, yet still dignified, a product of pragmatic economics wrapped in patriotic symbolism. As the documentary drifts into memory, we see slow pans of Lincoln's image, the furrowed brow, the distant gaze, the sculpted contours inspired by Victor David Brenner's original design. Over the decades, Brenner's vision has endured, even as the coin's materials and techniques evolved. His initials, VDB, once controversial and briefly removed in 1909, remain hidden at the base of Lincoln's shoulder, a quiet signature from the artist to history. And on the reverse, the initials FG mark Frank Gasparo's contribution, the designer who gave the coin its iconic Lincoln Memorial view. The camera zooms into the memorial engraving, the lines crisp and delicate. Within its columns, if one looks closely, a tiny seated statue of Lincoln is visible, a sculpture within a sculpture, a testament to the precision of minting art. That detail, almost invisible to the naked eye, embodies the spirit of craftsmanship that defines American coinage. The narrator reminds us that this coin, though mass-produced, carries the same reverence for artistry as a museum piece. Now the scene transitions to a collector's desk, modern day. The collector flips through certified holders labeled PCGS MS67RD, NGC MS68. The grading companies have become the arbiters of authenticity, their slabs and labels symbols of trust. A 1988 D-cent graded in mint state red, with flawless luster, commands immense respect. But when that same coin bears the transitional reverse, the rare die pairing, its value multiplies astronomically. The narrator's voice deepens. Such coins, in pristine condition, have fetched prices that defy expectation, in private sales rumored to reach $7, even $10 million. When rarity meets demand, the idea of a penny worth millions captures imaginations across the world. It becomes a legend shared in news stories, online forums, and YouTube documentaries just like this one. People rush to their old coin jars, their childhood piggy banks, searching for that 1 cent that could change their lives. The film cuts to everyday people holding magnifying glasses, their faces lit by hope. For a moment, everyone becomes a treasure hunter. The documentary's tone softens again, becoming reflective. Beyond the excitement and speculation, the story of the 1988 D-cent is about legacy, the enduring link between history, craftsmanship, and human curiosity. It reminds us that no creation, however small, is truly insignificant. A penny minted more than 30 years ago can still inspire awe, passion, and wonder. As the narration continues, the imagery turns symbolic. A slow-motion shot of coins cascading across a wooden table, their copper surfaces flashing like embers. The voice speaks of time's passage, of how metal endures while generations fade. These coins outlive us all, bearing silent witness to our economies, our ambitions, and our errors.
The 1988 descent, bored of a fleeting mistake, now carries immortality somewhere. In a quiet home, another collector opens a roll of pennies, unaware that history may be staring back at him. Perhaps within that roll lies the next great find, a piece that will rewrite what we know, challenge what we value, and remind us once again that in the world of coins, miracles still happen. The music swells, orchestral and grand. The camera pans over mountains of pennies, billions shining under soft light, then narrows to a single coin resting at the center.
The voice concludes this chapter with quiet conviction: a coin is never just a coin.
It is a fragment of civilization, a frozen heartbeat of a nation's story. And among all of them, the 1988 D Lincoln cent stands as proof that even the smallest object can hold the weight of history, the spark of fortune, and the echo of human wonder. The story of the 1988 D Lincoln cent does not end at the mint or in the hands of its first owners. Its real journey begins when time starts to work on it, when circulation polishes its surface and dulls its shine, when the copper coating begins to darken from bright orange to deep brown. Every mark, every nick is a record of the human world it moved through. Some of these coins vanished into forgotten drawers, others traveled across cities, through gas stations, coffee shops, and pockets of workers who never suspected they were carrying a fragment of history. The voice of time itself seems to whisper from the worn faces of these pennies that value hides not only in perfection, but in endurance. Decades later, collectors begin to trace the lineage of these coins. They compare die characteristics, catalog mint records, and reconstruct the moment the wrong reverse was fitted to the Denver presses. The fascination grows like a wave spreading through the numismatic community. Specialists photograph the microscopic shapes of the designer's initials, they compare the angles of strokes and the spacing between letters, overlaying them with the 1989 reference dies. Each discovery adds another thread to the tapestry of the 1988 D mystery. Soon, articles appear in coin journals, whispers turn into published findings. Coin grading services start receiving a new kind of submission: tiny brown pennies enclosed in protective holders, accompanied by anxious letters asking for verification. Under magnification, graders confirm the evidence: this is indeed the transitional reverse. Certification transforms mystery into legitimacy. Once a rumor, the 1988 D variety becomes a documented rarity. The marketplace reacts. Online auctions begin to list verified specimens, each one bringing higher prices than the last. Collectors around the world tune in, fascinated by how a 1-cent coin could command thousands, then tens of thousands of dollars. The camera of imagination zooms in on the auctioneer's podium as the gavel falls and a small slabbed coin changes hands for the price of a luxury car. In that moment, the humble cent crosses the invisible line between currency and artifact, but behind the glitter of sales lies something deeper: the psychology of rarity. The narrator's tone slows, deliberate, reflective. Why do we chase what is rare? Perhaps because rarity is proof of life's unpredictability. The 1988 D cent reminds us that beauty often emerges by accident, that imperfection has its own form of truth. Each rare coin is a physical reminder that control is an illusion even in the mint's realm of machines and measurements. Chance still reigns supreme. The 1980s themselves were a time of transition. America stood at the edge of technological change, between analog craft and digital precision. The mints were modernizing their equipment, computerizing die design, tightening quality control. Yet it was precisely during that modernization that this old meets new hybrid was born. The 1988 D cent, with its borrowed reverse from 1989, carries the DNA of that shift: part old tradition, part emerging technology. It is as if the coin itself embodies the moment when craftsmanship gave way to automation, when the human touch still guided machines that would soon guide themselves. The voice grows contemplative, exploring Lincoln's symbolism once again. More than a century after Brenner carved his likeness, Lincoln remains on the coin, patient, unchanging, the embodiment of honesty, humility, and perseverance. To place his image on a coin that later became a collector's marvel seems almost poetic. The man who rose from poverty to greatness now watches over a coin that rose from worthlessness to fortune. The parallel is haunting, beautiful, inevitable. Collectors tell stories of garage sale finds, of rolls searched late into the night, of the moment a magnifier revealed the fateful FG signature that confirmed authenticity. Every story carries a tremor of disbelief followed by the quiet triumph of discovery. Forums fill with grainy photographs, each poster hoping that the world will validate what their eyes have seen. Some are mistaken, others correct, but all share the same spark: the timeless human wish to uncover hidden value. Then the narrative widens, considering how coins like this affect our understanding of money itself. A cent is supposed to be uniform, interchangeable, an emblem of equality among objects. Yet here we have a cent that defies uniformity. Its worth is not determined by decree but by discovery. The market cannot print another like it, nor can legislation alter its rarity. It stands outside the usual order of value, a reminder that in every system, even one as rigid as currency, there exists room for wonder. The documentary voice softens, as if speaking from the future. Imagine centuries from now, when archaeologists unearth a 1988 descent and marvel at its preservation. They will study its composition, its design, its mysterious dual heritage. They will see in it a reflection of late 20th century America, a nation both industrial and idealistic, proud of its history yet eager to reinvent itself. The coin will tell them of the transition from copper to zinc, from analog to digital, from craftsmanship to mass production. In that single piece of metal, they will read the story of an age. Meanwhile, in the present, collectors keep searching. They search not only for the 1988 D but for the feeling it represents, the sudden spark of connection between the past and the present. When the right coin appears under their lens, they are not merely finding an object, they are meeting history face to face. That is why, even after all these years, the fascination continues. The narration turns introspective again. The 1988 descent has become a mirror for human emotion, hope, patience, obsession, joy. Some collectors spend decades in pursuit of a single perfect specimen. Others stumble upon it by accident, guided only by curiosity. Each path leads to the same revelation that meaning can hide in the smallest places, waiting to be seen. Over time, as the fame of the 1988 descent spreads, new discoveries arise. Different die states, new varieties, fresh interpretations of how many might exist. Some estimate only a few thousand survive, others believe the number is far smaller. Every new specimen found feels like a message from the past, proof that mysteries never truly end. Auction records climb higher. A pristine example in blazing red luster appears at a major sale, drawing worldwide attention. Cameras flash, voices rise, and when the final bid echoes, the number seems unreal, a simple penny now valued in the millions. But beyond the spectacle, what captures the imagination is the symbolism, a reminder that value is a story we tell ourselves, and some stories are powerful enough to turn copper into gold. The narrator speaks softly now, almost whispering. Somewhere in a forgotten drawer, another 1988 descent lies waiting. Its edges are worn, its luster faded, but its secret remains intact. Perhaps its owner passed away never knowing what treasure they held. Perhaps a child will one day find it, cleaning out a relative's belongings, and unknowingly hold a fortune in their hand. Such moments remind us that history is alive, still unfolding, even in objects we take for granted. The coin's journey mirrors our own. It begins in obscurity, shaped by forces beyond its control. It circulates through life, gathering marks and memories. Then, if fate allows, it is recognized for what it truly is, something rare, something meaningful, something that endured. The 1988 descent is not just a coin, it is a metaphor for discovery, for the transformation of the ordinary into the extraordinary. As the part draws toward its quiet close, the imagery turns abstract, the glint of metal under fading light, the echo of presses still ringing in some distant memory, the whisper of history moving through generations. The narrator's final words linger. Every coin ever struck is a chapter in humanity's story, and the 1988 D Lincoln cent is one of its most poetic. It began as a mistake, became a mystery, and ended as a masterpiece, proof that even the smallest objects can carry the largest truths. The coin rests now not only in collections but in the imagination. It has become a quiet legend among the ranks of rarities that remind people how chance can outlast design. The 1988 descent lives in conversations whispered at conventions, in careful articles in numismatic journals, in the long breath drawn by a collector before opening a new roll. It has become less a mistake and more a myth, proof that history sometimes hides in plain sight. As time moves forward, the market that surrounds such coins grows more complex. Dealers study every angle of the coin's surface, every trace of red or brown that can shift its grade. Cameras capture the faint shimmer of original mint luster, microscopes reveal the tiny ridges that distinguish a struck surface from one polished by circulation. In this meticulous world, the coin is more than a piece of metal, it is a specimen, a living document that records how machines and humans once worked together to create the nation's smallest denomination. The voice of the documentary deepens, steady and reflective. Value, it says, is not fixed, it breathes, it fluctuates, it evolves with the stories people tell. When collectors speak of the 1988 descent reaching values as high as $10 million, they are not simply naming a price. They are expressing the weight of fascination, the collective energy of thousands of eyes drawn to one tiny relic. The coin's worth becomes a symbol for something larger, the belief that attention itself creates value. Images of hands turning over pennies fill the mind screen. Each hand belongs to someone different, a student, a retiree, a child, an expert, yet each gesture is the same. The search. The tilt toward light. The moment of curiosity before recognition. This ritual connects generations, transcending money. It becomes meditation, art, patience.
Somewhere between the copper glow and the shadow of the magnifying glass, people find calm, discovery, identity. The story returns to the coin's design. Lincoln's portrait, austere and solemn, remains a constant in a changing nation. Around him, the word liberty endures, a promise renewed each time a new die is struck. The date 1988 anchors the coin in a specific moment, a world shifting from analog to digital, from old values to new dreams. And beneath that date, the small d, a single letter that now carries the weight of mystery. Denver, once just another mint mark, now a symbol of fate's unpredictable artistry. The narrator's voice softens, telling of the craftsmen who created these dies. They never knew their work would one day be studied under microscopes and discussed across continents. They were machinists, engravers, technicians, people who believed in precision. Yet it was their brief lapse, the unnoticed exchange of a reverse hub, that created this phenomenon. In that tiny error lies a quiet lesson: perfection is not always the path to beauty. Sometimes, meaning is born from what slips through our grasp. As the decades pass, the few surviving 1988D transitional cents become rarer still. Many have been lost, melted, or damaged. Those that remain are sealed in holders, preserved behind acrylic, their surfaces protected from time and touch. They are shown at conventions under bright white lights, admired like jewels, insured for fortunes. Yet beneath all the reverence, the coin itself remains simple, two metals fused together, bearing the likeness of a man who believed in equality. The narrator reflects on Lincoln's presence again, how his face, chosen for the cent, continues to symbolize integrity. The irony is almost poetic: a coin that once represented the smallest unit of commerce now carries the story of immense value. A face that taught honesty now presides over a tale of human desire. And perhaps Lincoln would have smiled at this, seeing that even a cent could remind people that value is created by belief, not decree. The film of words moves forward to scenes of collectors gathered in quiet rooms, discussing provenance and die states. They speak in a language outsiders barely understand: die cracks, hub doubling, RPMs, luster flow. To them, these are not just technicalities, they are poetry. Each term describes how history leaves its fingerprint on metal. To speak this language is to participate in a tradition that stretches back to ancient Rome, to the first people who realized that coins could preserve a civilization's story. Now the camera of imagination turns toward the marketplace again. The narrator describes how demand and legend feed each other. One high sale begets another, one discovery sparks 100 new searches. News outlets pick up the tale of the $1 million penny, and the myth grows wings. For a brief moment, the 1988D cent becomes famous beyond collector circles, a cultural echo reminding everyone that treasures can still hide in their own homes. Parents show their children jars of coins, teachers tell students to look closely at what seems ordinary. The legend becomes a bridge between generations. As the voice continues, it becomes more philosophical. The story of this coin is the story of noticing, the discipline of seeing what others overlook. It reminds us that attention itself is a form of creation. To see is to give meaning. Somewhere in a pile of change lies the next story waiting to be discovered, and someone, somewhere, will find it. The 1988D cent teaches that lesson better than any lecture on history or economics. The years move on, and yet the fascination does not fade. Technology advances, microscopes become digital, databases grow. Still, the heart of collecting remains the same: the thrill of the hunt, the love of the object, the desire to touch time. New collectors join the search, drawn by videos, articles, and whispers of unimaginable value. Some find nothing but common sense, yet even those carry quiet satisfaction. For in searching, they become part of the story. The narration turns tender, recalling how each coin, no matter how rare or common, holds a trace of human effort. The presses that struck it, the workers who monitored the machines, the engravers who designed it, all left something of themselves behind. Even a mechanical process contains a heartbeat if you look closely enough. The 1988D cent is proof of that: a machine's error, a human triumph. As the part draws near its close, the tone becomes serene, almost spiritual. The voice speaks of time as a great smelter, melting away the noise and leaving only the essence. What remains of the 1988D cent story is not the number of examples or the final auction price. What remains is wonder, the spark that turns curiosity into reverence. The coin is a reminder that history can be touched, that beauty can fit between your fingers, that fortune can hide inside something as small as a penny. In the end, when the lights of the convention halls go dark and the glass cases are closed, the coin still glows softly under its protective shell. It waits in silence, patient as it always has been. Perhaps one day, another will be found, and the story will begin anew. Until then, it endures, a symbol of imperfection's perfection, a monument in miniature, a single cent that carries within it the weight of 10 million dreams. The camera of imagination opens on silence. A single coin rests on dark velvet, its edges catching threads of light like the rim of a fading sun.
It has traveled through time and touch, through decades of human stories, until it has come to symbolize something far greater than its denomination. The 1988 D. Lincoln cent, once a whisper among collectors, has become a reflection of belief itself, belief that meaning hides in the smallest places, belief that chance can turn into destiny. The voice of the documentary flows softly, steady and human.
It speaks of how luck and patience intertwine.
Every collector who ever searched through boxes of coins learned this truth, that fortune favors not only the bold but the observant.
The act of searching is a ritual of faith, faith that the universe occasionally rewards curiosity. Each coin is turned, examined, released. Each one holds the potential to be the one.
For most, the hunt ends with ordinary pieces, but for a few, the moment arrives, the faint shimmer of the reverse, the curve of a letter, the certainty of discovery. And in that instant, the mundane world becomes extraordinary, the story deepens into reflection.
Rarity is not just statistical, it is emotional. The 1988 D cent carries weight because it proves that rarity can emerge from imperfection, that human oversight can create something lasting.
In a time obsessed with perfection, this tiny coin offers a quiet rebellion.
Its beauty lies in its mistake.
Its greatness lies in the fact that it was never meant to exist. The narrator's tone softens, almost a whisper. Think of the people who first touched it, mint workers on the factory floor, unaware that their daily labor would produce legend. Think of the cashiers who gave it as change, the children who spent it on candy, the hands that passed it forward again and again.
None of them knew. None of them could have known.
And yet, every gesture carried this tiny relic closer to the moment of recognition. History often moves that way, invisible, unnoticed, until someone stops to look, then the voice rises slightly, warm with awe. When collectors finally recognized the transitional reverse, it was as if they had uncovered a secret the mint itself had forgotten. They were not just discovering a coin, they were decoding time. Each new specimen verified the others, confirming that this was real, not rumor.
The numismatic world pulsed with excitement.
Articles spread, forums buzzed, old rolls were reopened. For a brief moment, the quiet world of coin collecting felt alive with adventure again, and yet beneath the excitement lay something more profound, a meditation on chance.
The 1988 D cent reminds us that our attempts at control always coexist with unpredictability. Machines can be tuned, processes standardized, but randomness remains part of creation. The mint's oversight mirrored the universe's own, structured chaos, order giving birth to surprise. The coin's existence is a metal echo of that eternal balance. The narration grows more contemplative.
Beyond metal and minting, there is the human story, the way a single object can carry meaning across generations.
In the 1988 D cent, one can trace the hands of history, the flow of economy, the persistence of memory.
It is both artifact and mirror, reflecting what people value: precision, rarity, beauty, the thrill of discovery. And perhaps, in the end, the cent tells us that value itself is a story, one that humans have been writing since the first coin was struck. The image shifts inward, toward emotion. Collectors speak of the feeling that comes when they realize what they hold.
It isn't greed or pride, it is awe.
A trembling in the hands, a silence that fills the room, the realization that they are touching something that shouldn't exist yet somehow does. That feeling is the heartbeat of collecting, the pulse that drives every search. The 1988 D cent, worth 10 million in rumor and in reverence, embodies that feeling perfectly. Of the voice continues, slow and resonant.
Time has turned this coin into a symbol of hope.
It reminds people that the ordinary can transform, that patience can uncover miracles. It stands for the idea that treasure is not hidden in distant lands but in the smallest corners of our everyday lives: a jar of pennies, a drawer, a forgotten roll. It tells a truth as old as humanity: wonder is always near, if only we learn to see. And now the narrative drifts toward philosophy. Every society leaves behind its metal stories, coins that capture its dreams, its leaders, its art. The United States has minted billions of cents, yet only a few, like the 1988 D transitional, have transcended function to become legend. It carries within it the story of a nation always in motion, refining, changing, learning. Even its materials, the thin copper shell, the humble zinc core, mirror the era's compromise between ideal and necessity. It is not made of precious metal, yet it has become precious nonetheless. The scene in the mind's eye widens, auction halls filled with quiet tension, the gleam of display lights, the murmur of collectors who understand the significance of what lies before them. When the gavel strikes, when a new record is set, it is not merely a transaction. It is a celebration of time, of persistence, of human fascination. Somewhere, Lincoln's face gleams under glass, his expression unchanged, his story renewed again through those who keep searching. The narrator speaks more softly now, the voice of evening settling in. Every time a new collector begins their journey, somewhere, without realizing it, they join the long shadow cast by coins like this one. They begin with curiosity, but they end with reverence.
The 1988 cent becomes their teacher, showing that meaning is not always designed but discovered. It becomes their compass, reminding them to look closer, to never dismiss what appears small. As the music of words swells, the story turns toward timelessness. Imagine centuries from now, when these coins are artifacts in museums, when people gaze at them through glass and wonder why such a small object held such importance. They will see in it the same things we do: the beauty of error, the persistence of memory, the spark of human curiosity that never fades. The 1988 cent will still whisper its story, even when those who first sought it are long gone. The narration slows, reflective and human. A coin begins as metal, but it ends as meaning. It begins in fire and ends in memory. The 1988 Lincoln cent has crossed that boundary, from object to idea, from currency to symbol. It carries not just value but a philosophy, that even mistakes can become miracles, that history hides in plain sight, and that our attention is what makes the ordinary eternal. As the words drift into silence, the final image remains: a single coin turning slowly in the light, its edges catching the glow of a distant sun. The voice fades, leaving only one truth echoing in the mind: greatness is not always born in gold. Sometimes, it is minted in copper, carried in a pocket, forgotten, and rediscovered by those who still believe and wonder. The darkness fades once more to a quiet hum. In that space between sound and silence, the story continues, the story of a coin that has outlasted expectation, a story that keeps growing each time it is told. The 1988 Lincoln cent has crossed decades, but now it steps into a new world, a world where collectors no longer gather in dusty halls but connect through glowing screens, where coins once stored in drawers now live in digital archives, and where history breathes again through the light of pixels. Yet even here, in this modern glow, the little cent still commands reverence. The voice of the documentary begins gently, like an echo returning home. Once, collectors traveled miles to meet, to trade, to hold each piece in their hands. Today, the world has changed. Markets have become virtual, auctions unfold live across continents. Yet no technology can replace the heartbeat that quickens when a collector sees that unmistakable design, that faint glimmer of possibility. Somewhere on a live stream, a magnified image of a 1988 cent rotates slowly under perfect lighting. Across the world, thousands watch, waiting. It is not just a coin they are witnessing, it is an encounter with history. The narrator pauses, the tone deepening into reflection. The journey of this coin mirrors the journey of the human spirit, from tangible to digital, from forgotten to immortalized. When the first article about its discovery appeared, it spread by word of mouth, passed between collectors like a secret. Now, its story travels faster than ever before, carried through videos, forums, documentaries like this one, whispered again and again until the myth becomes memory and the memory becomes truth. Every retelling keeps it alive. The documentary's tone rises slightly, a note of awe threading through the words. Think of what this coin represents to those who seek it now. It is not merely about wealth or ownership. It is about connection to time, to craft, to curiosity itself. Each person who hunts for one joins an invisible lineage that stretches back to the very first finder, and even further, to the mint workers who made it without knowing they were shaping legend. That lineage is the true value, the currency that never devalues, the shared thrill of discovery. The voice steadies again, calm but resonant. In numismatic circles, the 1988 cent has become almost mythological. Its existence is documented, verified, and yet still dreamlike. The Denver Mint Mark D, once a simple sign of location, now carries a kind of magic. It is the mark of chance, the moment when precision faltered and created rarity. Under the microscope, the details reveal the 1988 reverse paired with a 1989 obverse, a subtle blend that should never have met. But they did. And because they did, the world gained one of the most sought-after modern coins ever struck. The narration moves into softer tones, like memory speaking. Collectors often talk about what it feels like to hold one. It is small, light, only 2.5 grams, yet it carries the gravity of time. Its surface, worn yet enduring, reflects not just light but legacy. To hold it is to touch a moment of American history, a symbol of Lincoln's perseverance, and the artistry of a mint that, even in its errors, captured something perfect. There are stories, always stories, of people finding them in change, in coin rolls, in family jars untouched for decades. One such story tells of a man who discovered one in his late father's collection, not realizing its worth until he magnified it under a lamp. The realization came slowly, as disbelief turned to awe, and awe turned to quiet reverence. He didn't see just a coin. He saw a connection between generations, between past and present, between effort and accident. The 1988 cent became a symbol of his father's patience, of hours spent sorting, cleaning, and believing that something rare was always possible. The camera of imagination pans to the broader world. Auctions, expert panels, televised valuations all orbit this coin's legend. When it appears, even seasoned collectors fall silent.
Some estimate its value in millions, others say that its worth cannot be measured in currency.
Because in truth, it is not about the price, it is about proof. Proof that something so ordinary can transcend its creation.
Proof that history can hide in plain sight. Proof that the smallest object can awaken the largest emotions. The music swells faintly, strings, distant, melancholic. The narrator continues. Every time the coin changes hands, it carries more than its weight in metal. It carries stories of discovery, of disbelief, of dreams fulfilled.
And in that way, it mirrors Lincoln himself.
A symbol of endurance, of transformation, of quiet strength. The cent was always his coin, his portrait a reminder of integrity. But the 1988 D version gives that image a new meaning. Even through mistakes, legacy endures. Now the scene shifts again.
The modern collector is a historian of the ordinary.
They know that every coin, every mint mark, every scratch has meaning. They study light, texture, composition, even error. They search not just for value but for understanding.
In forums and online discussions, they debate die clashes, transitional designs, mint variations, and always, somewhere in those conversations, the 1988 D appears like a ghost that refuses to fade.
It is the heartbeat of the modern numismatic myth, the story everyone hopes to live firsthand. The narration grows thoughtful, almost philosophical.
What does it mean that a small copper coin can command $10 million in today's market?
Perhaps it means that value is not a measure of wealth but of wonder. Humanity has always placed value in stories, in what captures imagination, in what reminds us that even machines can create miracles. The 1988 D cent is a reminder that art and accident coexist, and that both have the power to move us. The voice slows, each word deliberate.
The coin's design, Lincoln on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, is a meditation in itself.
One side shows the man, the other his monument. One side mortal, the other immortal. Between them lies the edge, the thin boundary where history meets eternity. The 1988 D cent sits perfectly on that edge, caught between eras, between design transitions, between what was and what was meant to be. A pause. The voice continues, low and steady. For collectors, it is not simply about finding the coin but about what the search represents.
Patience. Dedication.
Respect for history. A belief that truth often hides where few bother to look. Every coin searched, every roll opened, becomes an act of faith that the world still contains mystery. And for those who do find it, that mystery turns into revelation. As the story nears its quiet crescendo, the narration looks outward, toward the legacy left behind.
The 1988 D cent has inspired books, lectures, countless online discussions.
But more than that, it has inspired people to look closer, not just at coins, but at everything. It has reminded an entire generation that meaning is not given, it is found.
That beauty can emerge from imperfection. That what is overlooked today may be priceless tomorrow. The voice softens once again. In every era, there are symbols that remind us who we are. For some, it is art.
For others, architecture, music, or literature. But for a few, it is something smaller, a coin, worn smooth by time, carrying both history and hope.
The 1988 D cent belongs to that category.
It is not just a collector's treasure, it is a human testament to persistence, to curiosity, to the wonder that survives in even the most ordinary of things. The light fades again.
The final image in part 6 forms slowly, a single coin lying under museum glass, its reflection stretching across the surface like a bridge between past and present.
A child leans in, eyes wide, reading the small plaque that tells its story. Somewhere, the future begins again, one more person touched by the mystery of metal, by the endless search for meaning. And as the lights dim, the narrator's voice leaves one thought suspended in the air. Sometimes, the smallest things hold the greatest stories, and sometimes, a single cent can teach the world the value of looking closer. The world grows quiet once more, and in that quiet, the story deepens. What began as metal now becomes meaning, what began as a coin now becomes reflection. The 1988 D Lincoln cent is no longer just an artifact, it is an idea. It stands not only for rarity, not only for value, but for the hidden design of chance that shapes all things. The narrator's voice moves like wind through memory, slow, reverent, filled with weight. There is something eternal about the image of Abraham Lincoln, the man who endured, the man who rose from poverty to greatness, the man whose face, cast in copper, has watched generations pass. Every cent bearing his image carries that story of struggle, of hope, of integrity.
But this coin, the 1988 D, carries something more.
It carries the story of transformation, a bridge between what was and what became, between design and destiny, between intention and accident. Under the microscope, collectors see the faint lines, the transitions, the tiny markers that prove its identity.
But beneath that physical evidence lies something invisible, the proof that imperfection itself can hold beauty.
Humanity has always chased flawlessness in art, in craft, in life, yet here, in the simplest of mistakes, something transcendent emerged. The mince machines erred, and from that error, history was born. It is as if the universe itself whispered, even in error, there is purpose. Even in the smallest things, greatness can bloom. The narrator pauses. The scene widens. We see history not as a line, but as a circle, everything returning, repeating, renewing. The Lincoln cent has always been more than currency, it is a reflection of the American spirit. When it was first minted in 1909, it symbolized the strength of unity after division, the idea that leadership could be born from humility. When the reverse changed in 1959 to the Lincoln Memorial, it was a celebration of memory of what was built to honor what was lost. And in 1988, when one design began to fade and another began to emerge, the coin unknowingly captured that same transformation once again, the fading of one age and the birth of another. The voice grows quieter, almost intimate. The 1988D is more than metal, it is a meditation on time. It asks us to consider what we hold on to, what we let go of, and what remains. Every nick, every blemish, every worn edge tells a story not of imperfection but of survival. Like Lincoln himself, the coin endures through the wear of time. Its beauty is not in how perfect it is, but in how it lasts, in how it continues to mean something long after it should have been forgotten. The sound of distant echoes fills the imagination, the soft chime of coins tumbling together, the hum of minting presses, the murmur of people across time who once handled this cent without knowing its future. The voice returns. In those sounds lies the pulse of humanity. We create, we distribute, we forget, and then we rediscover. Each rediscovery is a resurrection, a reminder that even the overlooked can one day return as legend. The 1988 descent is that resurrection made tangible. The tone deepens. Beyond collecting, beyond markets, beyond prices and records, this coin now lives in the collective mind. It has become a story we tell ourselves about luck, about detail, about destiny. It represents our longing for meaning, the belief that behind every ordinary thing, there might be something extraordinary waiting to be found. It is proof that our attention matters, that the act of seeing transforms the world. The narration drifts into philosophy. Lincoln's face on the coin has always looked forward, never sideways, never back, eyes fixed on something beyond, something unseen. Perhaps that was always the message, to keep looking ahead, to believe that progress is built one cent, one act, one discovery at a time. The 1988 descent captures that gaze perfectly. It looks forward while holding the past, a symbol of continuity wrapped in the quiet poetry of metal. Then the voice softens, a tone like memory fading in the dusk. In every collector's life, there is a moment of stillness when they stop searching, when they simply look. That moment is when history becomes personal. The 1988 descent is often that moment. For some, it's the first coin that sparked their fascination, for others, it's the one they will never find but always dream of. In both cases, it lives in the same place, in the imagination, where value is not about price but about wonder. The narration turns poetic. Imagine the thousands of eyes that have looked at it, the thousands of fingers that have traced its rim, the thousands of breaths that have whispered its story. Each one adds to its legend, layering it with meaning until it becomes something greater than itself. When people speak of its $10 million value, they are not speaking only of currency. They are speaking of faith, faith that the world still contains mystery, that chance still holds miracles. The voice slows, heavy with reflection. Lincoln's portrait, the memorial on the reverse, the Denver Mint mark, these are details of design, but they are also symbols of endurance. The cent has survived longer than most of the people who first used it. It has crossed generations, economies, and revolutions in technology. And through it all, it has kept telling the same story, that unity and perseverance outlast all things. The 1988D simply tells that story louder, through its rarity, through its accident, through the attention it commands. A deep pause. Then the words continue, quiet and deliberate. Every age chooses its relics. The ancients left us statues, temples, scrolls. Our era, too, leaves behind its emblems, small, mass-produced, but filled with meaning. The coin is one of them. And among all the coins of its time, the 1988D Lincoln cent stands apart as our modern relic, not carved in marble or gold, but born in the machinery of progress, carrying within it the fingerprints of both humanity and error. It is a relic of imperfection, and therefore a relic of truth. The music within the imagination swells, then subsides. The narrator's tone grows tender, almost wistful. There is something profoundly human in our attachment to objects like this. We search for permanence in things that will outlast us. We anchor our hopes to artifacts that carry stories we cannot tell ourselves. The 1988 D cent has become one such anchor, a small, copper link between time and timelessness. To eye in the darkness, the image of the coin turns slowly, its reflection glimmering like the heartbeat of history. The voice fades to a whisper. The story of this coin is not over. It never will be. For as long as there are eyes to look and hearts to wonder, the 1988 D Lincoln cent will continue to live in glass cases, in dusty drawers, in dreams, and in the imagination of every person who believes that even the smallest object can hold the weight of eternity. And as the final light falls across its surface, the voice concludes softly, almost as a prayer: value is not found in gold or silver, nor in numbers or fame. True value lies in discovery, in curiosity, in the fragile miracle of imperfection. That is the legacy of the 1988 D Lincoln cent, not a mistake, not an accident, but a reminder that history is alive, and that every touch, every glance, every story we tell gives life to the things we leave behind. The light fades in once again, slow and golden, as if dawn itself were awakening upon a field of copper. The story does not end, it evolves. The 1988 D Lincoln cent, once born of accident and rediscovered by chance, now breathes as legend. Its surface carries not only the marks of minting but the fingerprints of those who have believed in its mystery. The narrator's voice returns, calm, eternal, carrying the rhythm of time. Every age, every generation, rediscovers its symbols. Some choose art, some choose words, some choose the relics of progress: coins, stamps, machines, fragments of human design that whisper of the world that made them. And within this vast gallery of history, the 1988 D Lincoln cent glows like a quiet ember. It does not shout its story, it hums it, softly, endlessly, to those who are willing to listen. The world of numismatics has changed beyond recognition. What once belonged to hobbyists in quiet rooms now belongs to digital archives, communities, and collectors who meet through invisible networks. Yet even in this age of screens, the 1988 D cent refuses to lose its soul. When an image of it appears on a monitor, magnified and gleaming, hearts still race. That small copper circle, created in 1988 at the Denver Mint, has become a bridge between past and present, between the tangible and the virtual. The narrator's tone deepens, layered with warmth. Technology may change the way we search, but it does not change why we search. Each collector who peers through a digital microscope, who scrolls through photographs of mint errors and transitional reverses, is still chasing the same thrill that began centuries ago: the hope that within the ordinary lies something miraculous. The 1988 D cent reminds us that even in a world of automation and algorithms, discovery is still personal, still human. The scene expands to a modern auction hall filled with quiet light. Rows of bidders sit in reverent silence as the coin is unveiled. Its copper glow ripples across the room like memory reborn. When the gavel falls and the number echoes through the air, $10 million, the audience does not applaud. They exhale. Because deep down they know, the price is not for the metal, but for the meaning. The narrator continues softly, the tone reverent. A $10 million coin is not an object of greed, it is a monument to obsession, patience, and awe. It is proof that even in an age defined by speed, there are still those who stop, who look closely, who care. This coin, born in the rhythm of the mint's machinery, has become a human heartbeat, a pulse that ties collectors together across oceans and generations. The story turns reflective. In homes across the world, jars of pennies still sit forgotten, waiting, perhaps, for one hand to open them. Children learning about money still clutch their first Lincoln cent, never realizing they are holding one of the longest continuous stories in American history. Somewhere, an older collector opens a roll of 1988 D pennies, eyes sharp with both hope and memory. And maybe, just maybe, they will find the one that changes everything. The legend lives because hope never dies. The voice grows softer, almost tender. In this way, the 1988 D cent has become more than a collectible. It is a teacher. It tells us that perfection is not the goal, attention is. It teaches patience, focus, and humility. It reminds us that history rewards those who look closely. And beyond the lesson lies the deeper truth, that meaning is not created by value, value is created by meaning. The narrator pauses, the silence rich with emotion. What drives people to care so much about a coin? It is not just its scarcity, nor its fame. It is what it represents, the collision between human intention and human error, the poetry of imperfection, the miracle of survival. In every story about this cent lies a reflection of our own lives, that no matter how small, how ordinary, we all carry the possibility of becoming something timeless. The tone shifts to contemplative wonder. Around the world, the Lincoln cent is both artifact and symbol. In museums, it sits under glass, perfectly preserved. In pockets, it still circulates, humble and unnoticed. The 1988 D, however, transcends both. It is both in and beyond circulation. It belongs to history and myth at once. It has become part of the collective imagination, a token of chance that turned into destiny, and now the narration grows philosophical.
Lincoln's gaze, immortalized in profile, looks ever forward.
It is as if he knew that the nation's story would continue through its smallest denomination, through the quiet endurance of copper and zinc.
The coin itself, like the man it bears, embodies perseverance.
And the 1988 D variant, born from misalignment and transition, reminds us that progress always involves change, that evolution is never clean, that beauty often emerges from the fracture between what was and what will be. The voice grows intimate, quiet, human.
Somewhere, late at night, a collector sits beneath a lamp, examining a coin beneath magnification.
The light gleams across the surface, the lines, the texture, the subtle differences that mark rarity from the ordinary.
They know they may never find it.
Yet the act of searching fills them with peace. The 1988 descent has given them something no amount of money can buy: purpose. The narration expands, a slow current of reflection. We live in an age where attention is fleeting, where the world moves faster than memory can keep up. And yet, a coin from 1988 continues to hold our gaze, to demand our focus, to slow time itself. It asks us to see, not just look, but truly see. To see the design, the history, the possibility, the beauty of error, and through it all, to see ourselves. The music of imagination rises, faint strings against silence.
The narrator continues, voice steady as stone.
Every generation needs its myth, something to remind it that meaning is not extinct. For some, that myth is written in books or carved in stone. For others, it is minted in copper.
The 1988 D Lincoln cent is one such myth, not because it was planned, but because it wasn't.
Its existence defies reason, and therefore invites faith. The light grows warmer now, the story nearing its quiet height.
The coin blows softly under imagined glass.
Around it, the world moves on. New currencies rise, digital economies form, paper fades to screens, but the cent remains. It is a whisper of permanence in an age of change. It is the echo of craftsmanship, of the human hand, of intention and chance intertwined. The narrator breathes, then continues with quiet strength.
The 1988 D cent does not ask for belief. It earns it.
Through time, through scrutiny, through patience, it has become undeniable. Its story belongs not only to collectors but to everyone who has ever stopped to wonder how something so small could mean so much.
And in that wonder lies its true immortality. As the words draw close to silence, the narrator's tone softens into memory.
The story of the 1988 D Lincoln cent is not finished. It will never be finished. It will be told again and again, in classrooms, in auctions, in whispered conversations between generations.
Because it is not just about a coin.
It is about discovery, about faith in detail, about the beauty of imperfection.
It is about humanity itself, and in that final moment,
the image lingers, the coin turning slowly, catching the last light of an unseen sun. The narrator's final words fall like dust upon silence. Sometimes the smallest things remind us that eternity begins not in the heavens, but in the palm of our hand.
The frame opens in silence.
A slow, amber glow rolls across a tabletop scattered with coins, echoes of 1,000 stories caught in copper light. The camera draws closer to one piece, the 1988 D cent, resting as still as memory itself. The narrator's voice emerges again, soft, weathered, patient, like time speaking to itself. There is a strange power in the small and the forgotten. The 1988 D Lincoln cent, once unnoticed among billions, has become a paradox, an object so ordinary that it turned extraordinary through persistence, error, and belief. What began as a simple coin has become a legend whispered through generations, proof that history is not always written in ink or marble but sometimes struck in metal and carried in pockets. The voice deepens.
To understand the 1988 D is to understand America in miniature.
It was born from the great machinery of the Denver Mint, the rhythmic pounding of presses echoing across steel halls. Each strike captured not only Lincoln's face but the pulse of a nation: ambition, progress, imperfection. Every die carried the weight of that story, and somewhere, one set of dies slipped, producing the transitional reverse, the faint change that would one day turn copper into myth. Collectors have studied its surfaces under magnification, tracing the faint lines that separate it from the common cent. They speak of the white AM, of the designer's initials misplaced, of the subtle curvature of the Lincoln Memorial's columns. To the untrained eye, it is nothing.
To those who understand, it is everything.
That difference, almost invisible, is what transformed a single cent into an artifact worth $10 million, not because of what it is, but because of what it means. The camera pans through dim archives, rows of velvet cases and magnifiers gleaming like constellations. The narrator continues, voice carrying both wonder and gravity. Money, in its purest form, is faith, faith in value, in continuity, in the symbols we choose to trust.
But the 1988 D Lincoln cent transcends even that.
It has become a vessel of human longing, a physical manifestation of our desire to find order in chaos, meaning in accident, permanence in transience. Now imagine the moment it was found: an ordinary collector, perhaps in a garage or a kitchen, sifting through coins one evening.
The soft clink of copper fills the air. A magnifying glass catches the light.
Then a pause, a heartbeat held still, as the impossible reveals itself.
That single instant, the moment of recognition, carries more electricity than gold ever could. The narrator pauses, letting the silence breathe.
That is where history happens, not in grand declarations, but in the quiet gasp of discovery. The voice grows reflective. Over the years, stories of the 1988 D have multiplied: tales of chance, of auctions, of late-night examinations by lamplight. It has passed through hands that trembled with reverence.
It has crossed borders, been photographed, studied, debated. And each time, its story deepens.
It is not merely the coin that holds value, but the web of human connection that is formed around it: the conversations, the sleepless nights, the shared heartbeat of curiosity. The scene dissolves to a slow montage: the Denver Mint in 1988, bright metal flashing under fluorescent light, the face of Lincoln carved in steel, molten copper flowing like a river of history.
The narrator speaks again.
Every coin begins as an idea, a promise of identity, a nation stamped into matter. The Lincoln cent, first issued in 1909, carried the soul of a leader who believed in unity and resilience. By 1988, the coin was both memory and prophecy, the last whisper of an era still shaped by ideals. The 1988 descent, with its accidental variation, became a quiet metaphor that even when systems evolve, the traces of the past remain. The narrator's voice softens to near whisper. There is something deeply human in our fascination with imperfection. We chase it not because it is flawed, but because it is real. The 1988 descent, with its subtle misalignment, embodies the essence of creation itself, the intersection of intention and chance. Perfection may inspire admiration, but imperfection inspires love. As the story moves forward, the world itself changes. Paper gives way to plastic, plastic to pixels. Yet somewhere in the hum of servers and the glow of digital ledgers, the Lincoln cent still glimmers. It is a heartbeat from another time, proof that value can exist without circuitry, that meaning can persist even when technology forgets. The narrator's tone grows almost sacred. The 1988 D coin endures because it is both matter and memory, a relic that speaks to the part of us that refuses to vanish. In this quiet light, the coin becomes a mirror. The narrator reflects, each word measured.
What do we see when we look at it?
We see Lincoln's face, yes, but behind that, we see the story of a nation's persistence, its flaws, its dreams, its unending reinvention.
We see ourselves searching, imperfect, hopeful.
The coin story is our story. The narration deepens into philosophy. Perhaps that is why this cent has captured imaginations for decades. Because it is not about wealth or rarity, but about faith and discovery. To find one is to touch time, to stand at the intersection of chance and history. It reminds us that even in the smallest of things, entire universes of meaning can unfold. The scene shifts once more. The camera glides through a coin show, glass cases glinting under warm light, collectors speaking in hushed tones, children pointing, old hands steadying magnifiers. In one of those cases lies the 1988 D Lincoln cent, now a legend.
A quiet hum fills the air: awe, reverence, disbelief.
When the auctioneer's voice announces the number, $10 million, the room does not erupt.
It listens, breath held.
For in that number lies not greed but recognition. Recognition of a story completed, of a journey fulfilled. The narrator returns, his voice slow and rich.
The 1988 D cent was never meant to be extraordinary.
It was meant to be forgotten, spent, lost, replaced.
Yet it survived, not by intention but by accident. And that survival is a parable.
We, too, are struck by unseen forces, shaped by pressures we do not control, sent out into the world with marks both perfect and flawed.
Some of us vanish into circulation. Some endure.
Some, by chance, become stories. The sound fades to silence. Only the faint tick of a clock remains.
The narrator's tone turns to gentle finality.
The coin rests now, encased in glass, yet it still moves through time, still speaks to those who listen. Its worth may be measured in millions, but its meaning cannot be contained by numbers. It is a story of patience, of human hands and human eyes that refuse to stop looking. The frame narrows, the coin glinting one last time. The narrator's final words of Part 9 echo softly, like a truth carried on the wind. Every great treasure begins as something ordinary. Every miracle begins as something missed. The 1988 D Lincoln cent was never just a coin, it was a reminder that within the smallest circle of metal lies the infinite circle of human wonder.
The light is almost gone now. What remains is a single gleam across a single coin. The 1988 D Lincoln sent its surface breathing the last reflections of a long journey.
The narrator's voice is calm, certain, worn with wisdom. History ends the way it begins, in silence. In that silence we find a heartbeat, the same one that pulsed through the mince presses decades ago, through collectors' hands, through every story told about this small circle of copper and zinc. It has traveled farther than any map could show, not through space, but through meaning. The camera moves slowly across shelves of old coin books, microscopes, auction catalogs. The voice continues. Every page, every note, every whisper about this coin was not really about metal at all, it was about us. It was about the human desire to leave something behind that lasts longer than breath. Lincoln's face, still forward-looking, still resolute, seems to understand. His profile, carved over a century ago, reminds us that endurance is not born of power but of principle. A cent bearing his likeness carries the same quiet conviction he lived by, that every small act, every humble thing, can help shape something eternal. The sound of distant wind blends with faint piano. The narrator speaks more softly. The 1988 D cent, worth $10 million today, is not valuable because of wealth, it is valuable because it proves that wonder survives. It reminds us that attention itself is an act of love, that seeing is a form of faith. To look closely at anything, at a coin, at a face, at a moment, is to say, you matter. Images of hands turning pennies under lamplight fade one into another, a child's hand, an elder's hand, a scholar's, a dreamer's. The voice drifts among them. All of them are searching for something, though none could quite say what. Perhaps they are searching for time itself, for the feeling that nothing is truly lost. And in that search, they find meaning. The narrator continues, each word slower, deeper. There will always be coins like this, stories like this, ordinary things transformed by the gaze of those who care. They remind us that history is not only made by nations, but by eyes that notice, by minds that remember, by hearts that refuse to stop wondering. The light narrows to a single point on the coin's surface. The voice is almost a whisper now. Somewhere, even now, another 1988 D rests unseen, waiting. Somewhere, someone will find it. And in that instant, when light hits metal and recognition dawns, the story will begin again. Because stories like this never truly end, they only pause until someone listens. A long pause. Only the faint hum of air, then the last words, everything we keep, everything we cherish, everything we believe in begins as something small. A spark. A glint. A single cent. And from that cent, an entire world of wonder is born. The camera holds on the coin. The screen fades slowly to black. The final echo of the narrator remains steady, timeless, like a memory too precious to fade. Look closely, the voice says. The world is full of treasure, if only we take the time to see. The music swells once, then dissolves into silence. End of film.